If you're a Cowboys fan, you already know how quickly the off-season can turn into a roller coaster of rumors, roster moves, and decisions that feel like they will define the next season. Right now, I want to look at the Cowboys roster from a very specific angle. Not just what the team needs long-term, but what the roster actually looks like as we sit today with free agency looming and draft talk already heating up. And the truth is, a lot of this list is going to change between now and the time the ink dries on free agent deals because assumptions can get you in trouble. You can assume someone comes back, but until it's official, it's still a question mark. So, what I'm doing here is ranking needs based on the current situation, the contracts, and the reality of who is actually locked in and who is not. At the bottom of the list, at number 10 is quarterback. It's not a long-term need, and it's not even really a pressing short-term one, because the Cowboys are committed to Dak Prescott as the starter. The real question is what happens behind him. Joe Milton is still in the picture as a developmental backup, and that's fine. But beyond that, there is room for one more quarterback on the roster, even if it's just a practice squad guy. There's also the question of Will Grier, whose future is uncertain since his futures deal expired. So yes, the Cowboys could bring in another body just to keep that depth intact. It's not sexy. It's not headline-grabbing, but it matters. When you're talking about a position like quarterback, you always want to make sure you have options because injuries happen and you don't want to be caught scrambling in the middle of the season. Moving up to number 9, we're talking tight end. If the Cowboys had to play a game today, they would have 3 solid options. Jake Ferguson is there, Brevin Spanford is there, and Luke Schoonmaker is there. But the depth behind them is where the uncertainty lies. Princeton Fant, as of this recording, is not locked into a futures deal, and he may be exploring opportunities elsewhere. The team also lost Ronaldo Farrow, which takes away another body in that room. So, while the Cowboys probably won't spend a premium on tight end in free agency, they will likely want to add depth, especially for the preseason and to survive injuries. Another late-round pick or UDFA who can contribute on special teams and develop in the offense makes a lot of sense here. Number 8 on the list is kicker, which is always a tricky spot because the position tends to be undervalued. But Brandon Aubrey is set to be a restricted free agent, and that means the Cowboys will have to make a decision. The most likely move is applying the second-round tender with the goal of working toward a long-term deal. That makes sense because the second-round tender number is not that far off from what a franchise tag would cost, and it gives the team a bit of breathing room while they try to hammer out a longer contract. The reality is if another team is willing to give up a second-round pick for a kicker, you probably have to consider it, even if he has been reliable. The kicker market is weird and the Cowboys' defense needs help more than their special teams. But for now, the uncertainty keeps kicker on the list. At number 7, we move into the offensive line. The Cowboys currently have a starting 5 that looks solid on paper, but the biggest question is the future of Terrence Steele. If the team decides to move on from him, this need jumps up dramatically because then you're suddenly looking for a new right tackle or someone who can slide into the lineup. Steele has been criticized at times, but I don't think he is as bad as some people make him out to be. The problem is not whether he is a decent player, but whether he is worth the money. His cap hit is massive, and the new cash that would be required to keep him is even more eye-opening. If you cut or trade him before June 1st, you still have to eat dead money, but you free up room to address other areas. If you cut him after June 1st, the savings come later, but you still create flexibility for the draft and other roster moves. The big question is whether the Cowboys want to commit that money to Steele or use it to strengthen other positions. Beyond Steele, the line has some pieces you can trust if they stay healthy. Tyler Smith is a strong piece and Tyler Badass gives you stability at center. You have players like Josh Ball and Dalton Reisner who provide depth, and then you have younger players like Brock Hoffman and Robert Jones who are currently free agents. The Cowboys also have players like Nate Davis and Johnny Cornelius in the mix. If the team keeps Steele, then the offensive line conversation is more about depth and flexibility. If they move on from him, it becomes a major priority, and you might see the Cowboys targeting that position in free agency or the draft. It could be a day 3 pick. It could be a veteran signing, but either way, it would become a more urgent need. At number 6, we get to quarterback, and this is where the list starts to get a bit more urgent. The Cowboys have some talent at the position, but injuries and uncertainty have left the unit in a precarious spot. Dante Banks is a good player, but he has to stay healthy, which is not always a guarantee. Sevyn Banks has shown flashes, but he is still developing, and you have to wonder how high the ceiling is. The team also has young guys under contract like R.J. Mickens, Caden Stearns, and Zion Johnson. But I would rather see those players compete for backup roles than be relied upon as starters right away. Even if the Cowboys bring back guys like Trayvon Diggs and Darren Bland, the position still needs reinforcement. The defense as a whole needs help, and the secondary is a big part of that. So, quarterback sits in the middle of the list for now, but it will likely move up as free agency approaches. And then you hit the part of the roster where the list starts to get heavy. This is where you realize that the Cowboys are not just one or two pieces away from being a complete team. The reality is that the defense has to be rebuilt, and it starts with the secondary and the front seven. The Cowboys have been focused on defensive coaching changes, and that tells you the organization knows the problem is deeper than just personnel. The cornerbacks, the safeties, the linebackers, the pass rushers, all of it needs attention. The Cowboys have some players under contract, but the question is whether those players are enough to make a meaningful improvement. Before we get into the top 5 needs, let's acknowledge the elephant in the room. George Pickens is a free agent, and until the Cowboys pay him, you have to treat that spot like a whole. Pickens was everything you wanted this past season. He, along with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, gave the offense a chance to win even when the defense was historically bad. If the Cowboys bring him back, then the need at wide receiver drops significantly. But until that is official, you have to assume there is a gap there. The wide receiver room would still have other options, but losing a player like Pickens would be a huge blow. The Cowboys could also add a late-round receiver for depth, but the big focus should be locking him in and then addressing the bigger needs on defense. The Cowboys' off-season story really begins once you accept that the defense is the real issue, and not just because of a few bad games or a rough stretch. Is because the roster is built with holes in key spots, and the front office has to decide how aggressive they want to be in fixing it. The safety position, for example, is one of those areas where you can see the potential to improve dramatically, but you also see how the team has been dragging its feet. Right now, the Cowboys have a few safeties under contract, but the overall talent level is not where it needs to be if they want to be a top defense. There are veterans like Malik Hooker who can still play, but his health has been a concern. You have guys like Elijah Molden, Marcel Harris, and even some younger pieces, but the fact remains that the starting job at safety should be an impact position, not something you hope develops over time. The Cowboys need at least one new starter in the secondary, someone who can cover, tackle, and make plays. If they don't get that, the defense is going to struggle no matter who is calling the plays. Then there is the running back room, which is another position that looks like it could shift dramatically once the off-season moves start happening. The Cowboys have some talented backs under contract, but their top 2 options from last season are both set to hit free agency. Javonte Williams and Malik Davis have shown they can be effective in this offense, and the Cowboys have indicated that they want to bring Williams back. If they do, that changes the entire landscape of the roster because running back would no longer be a major need. But if Williams walks, then you suddenly have a real question mark at the position. The Cowboys have Jaden Tolbert, Hunch Lipke, Phil Maffa, and Israel Anakanda. But those are not proven top-end starters. If the team is forced to replace Williams, they will need to either find a free agent or draft someone who can carry the load. And if they bring Williams back, the focus shifts back to the defense, which is where it should be anyway. The linebacker spot is another area that has been under scrutiny for a while. And this off-season, it feels like the Cowboys have to make a real decision. Last season, the linebacker group was inconsistent at best. Some players showed flashes, but injuries and lack of production were constant themes. The biggest issue is that the Cowboys do not have a clear, reliable starter in the middle. You have players like Marlon Mack who has had his moments, but he's also been injured and inconsistent. You have guys like Sam Williams who can make plays, but you cannot build a defense around the kind of uncertainty. The team needs 2 starting caliber linebackers, not 1, and certainly not a group of players who might be fine as backups. The Cowboys have to decide whether to draft a linebacker early, sign a veteran, or both. If they do not, the defense will remain vulnerable against the run and in the intermediate passing game, which is where opponents exposed them last season. The reality is that the Cowboys' defensive issues are not limited to one position group. The pass rush is the biggest and most glaring hole on a roster, and it sits at the top of the need list for a reason. Right now, the Cowboys have only a handful of pass rushers under contract, and the group simply did not get enough pressure last season. There's no way to sugarcoat it. If you do not have a consistent edge presence, you're going to struggle. Quarterbacks will sit in the pocket, find their reads, and dissect your defense. The Cowboys need someone who can consistently win one-on-one matchups, someone who can create chaos, force turnovers, and change the way opponents game plan. The team has to decide whether to bring back some of their former pass rushers or to go out and find new pieces in free agency in the draft. Either way, you cannot go into next season with the same group and expect different results. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. In a move that has sent shockwaves across the NFL, rumors are swirling that the Dallas Cowboys have secured not 1 but 2 superstar signings, igniting speculation about the team's ambitions for the upcoming season. Sources close to ESPN suggest that negotiations have been quietly progressing behind the scenes. And while official confirmation remains pending, the league and fans alike are abuzz with the possibilities. Insiders hint that these acquisitions could fundamentally alter the Cowboys' offensive and defensive dynamics. The identities of the players remain closely guarded, but chatter points to 2 athletes whose reputations and skill sets would instantly elevate any roster. If these reports hold true, Dallas could be positioning itself as a dominant force, capable of challenging perennial powerhouses in ways few anticipated. The excitement is palpable among fans, many of whom have taken to social media to speculate on who the new stars might be. Rumors range from high-profile quarterbacks to versatile playmakers, with analysts debating how such talent could mesh with the existing squad. The Cowboys front office has been known for calculated bold moves in the past, but landing 2 elite players simultaneously would rank among their most audacious strategies to date. While skeptics caution that negotiations can falter at the last minute, the timing and intensity of the reports suggest serious momentum. Sport commentators are already dissecting potential lineup changes and tactical shifts, imagining a Cowboys team that could dominate both sides of the ball. If these rumors prove accurate, the franchise may not only be chasing a playoff berth, but signaling a renewed bid for championship contention. The atmosphere around Dallas is electric, with fans eagerly awaiting official word. The speculation alone has sparked debates in locker rooms, sports bars, and online forums nationwide. One thing is certain. Should these rumored signings materialize, the Cowboys' identity and trajectory could be transformed overnight, turning them into a team that opponents will approach with caution, respect, and maybe even fear. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed